Oh, yeah.
And it's on. Okay.
So far, do you like the book?
Thanks, Caitlin. Personally, it's okay.
Kylie,
That's
what
all
do you
I'm gonna
think
say.
about the book?
I have mixed opinions on the books. Parts of it I think are really interesting. Other parts I struggle to read because I can't stay focused.
I agree with that.
Me too. Like, I like it just because I'm a fan of war stories, but like, it's kind of confusing to read some parts of it.
It's okay, but the way that it like switches between random different stories and it has like no specific order, that's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, it was hard to really get into at first, but like, I don't know. It's kind of cool how it switches between stories, but there's some points where it's really boring.
Okay. I have a question that I think is good to start it with. So, throughout the book so far, O'Brien uses different points of view. What effect do you think this has on the book overall, and why would he choose to jump between the different views? How does this make the reader interpret the text?
See, I realized that also, and personally, my thinking on it was there's certain stories or like certain things that you're doing where telling it in a different way really would affect a reader more of because this is a memoir and he's probably trying to persuade like people about something. So I mean, being in first person might help him with some stories or like something, just like saying like what he did. But by being in third person, it can really show some other point of views also.
Yeah, I agreed with Michael because like when I was reading that, I noticed it too, and I feel like when he uses like first person, it kind of makes you like feel it, like realize that he went through it. But when he uses a third person point of view, it like kind of makes the story like more.
Like
I don't know how to describe it. It
Mo-
makes it
More kind of
like
like when the History Channel is
Yeah.
talking about.
yeah, like makes
Yeah.
it more like
It's not
informational.
coming from a guy who witnessed this
Yeah.
firsthand.
yeah, so like it brings you from just kind of
a
like
more like almost generic, not generic, but like a more broad story. Like it's more like could have happened. But when he
Yeah.
uses like first person, it's like something specifically that's to him. Like when it talked about Martha in the very beginning.
How it talked about like he carried that picture around and like everyone saw it, and then when he realized, oh, she didn't love him, that all his friends realized how like depressed he got.
could be a little
Yeah,
louder.
and then like when
Sorry.
he's talking about like all the things that they carry, he used third person because like generally all the soldiers carried like these kind of things. But like when there's more personal things like the pictures, he used first person.
I think the third person like incorporates the other people in the like story better than first person could because the like first person is more like
I
his it's like
It's
it's
more
like more
personal
his
matter.
experience, yeah, and it doesn't, yeah.
It's not like a broad.
first person can
Yes.
kind of really get you thinking of like, oh hey, that's what he went through
Yeah.
instead of what like a whole group of people went through as in third person.
Yeah, it just makes you think like first person from their point of view, like what they're going through, and then from third person, you're just thinking about everybody else's perspective and what they're
Yeah.
watching.
Which isn't a bad idea.
No, it was kind of cool how he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked pretty
Like
well.
if you step back and like look at everything,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
your experience in every single part of it.
Yeah, because in like chapter 1, it was talking about it's like the soldiers carried weapons and stuff,
Yeah.
and then he starts going on to like certain people like
Yeah,
what was the guy's name that carried the cans of peaches around?
yeah. Or there was like a part in it where they talked about how they went through that like hole, and it would talk about like it would jump from him talking about something to how the others would talk about how they had to go through the hole, and it was the scariest thing ever. It was so dark and you didn't know if it was gonna collapse or not. It just jumped back and made you feel like different things.
I don't know. I just think it's unique because usually memoirs are like the person is telling everything in the story because it's about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it switches, which I think is cool.
So I have a question. What was the reason behind the conflict O'Brien felt when deciding whether to fight in the war or leave his country for Canada? Like, it was in chapter 4.
Yeah,
I
think
talked
was
about it.
chapter 4.
I think his main like reason he didn't want to fight in the war, he wanted to leave to go to Canada, was because he didn't really believe in war and he thought that it was like a bad thing, but he wanted to stay because he didn't want to leave like his life and his history that he made in like America behind. But like if you're in the U.S., then you're kind of like you have to like you're expected to like fight in the wars if you're a man.
Yeah.
You'd like considered a coward if you
Yeah.
don't fight. So, like you don't
Yeah.
want to be like
Yeah.
a coward or like disgrace your family. It's
Yeah.
like if he were to run, his family would be like known as raising a coward son.
Yeah, I feel like there was like a fear factor in it too. Like he feared going into war, like he didn't like it, but then thinking about it, yeah, if he ran away to Canada, the whole country would view someone like that as a coward, that they're like not defending their
As a
country.
deserter.
Yeah, they're giving up on them.
I remember
And he's betraying them.
Yeah.
there's like this one quote here. He's like, where was it? Oh, him saying, "I was too good for this war, too smart, too compassionate, too everything. It couldn't happen. I was above it. I had the world dicked. Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude and president of the student body and a full ride scholarship for grad studies at Harvard." I mean, he's kind of saying like he's better than that. Or it says like the sight of blood made me queasy and I couldn't tolerate authority and I didn't know a rifle from a slingshot.
Yeah.
So it's like really he didn't find himself like as if he needed to go to war because he was like maybe better than it, or if he just didn't want to go to war because he didn't know like what would happen there.
Like during like the time like the going into war was like for the Vietnam War was like very controversial. You were either for it or you weren't for it.
Yeah.
And like
Essentially, we didn't have to go into it.
like
Yeah.
it was a very
It was a very
politically
controversial
controversial
thing.
war.
So there were a lot of people who hated it and thought
Like it was a
it was,
waste.
it was a waste of time for our country.
And like during this time too, when you're drafted, you had to go. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
they drafted you. They said, "Yep, you had to go." But he says in here, "I was no soldier. I hated Boy Scouts. I hate camping out. I hated dirt, tents, and mosquitoes." Like he just
Yeah.
didn't. He didn't like.
He didn't
Essentially, he didn't
like
like outdoors, but like
Yeah.
he didn't like the whole concept of war. But like he was drafted anyway, and he was just thrown into it.
Yeah.
I have so on page 54, so something that we can like do connections. It says, "What would you do? Would you jump? Would you feel pity for yourself? Would you think about your family and your childhood and your dreams and all you're leaving behind? Would it hurt? Would it feel like dying? Would you cry as I did?" So like just to make connections, like what would you do if you were in that situation?
I mean, really, I couldn't think of much that like I would do in that situation. I mean, for him, it's like he has his whole life, which seems pretty decent considering like all of the things that he had, like full ride to Harvard and all these
Yeah.
different things. I mean, why would he want to leave behind the chance of, having a pretty good life somewhere else, say Canada, and like just come back when the war is over and then he could just pick it back up, or go to war, possibly die, and like just leaving all of these things behind when he could have had actually a pretty decent life.
It matters like his life just like it's gonna change his life forever. So if he goes to Canada, he probably wouldn't want to come back because he would be known as
Yeah.
a coward that left and like
Mhm.
didn't stay. So like if he were to jump and go to Canada, then he wouldn't be able to come back. But if he went to war, he'd have a chance to come back and then go back to Harvard
Yeah,
if he
and then
survived it.
it'd be
But like
Well, and think of it too, because like if he came back from Canada and everyone thought of him as a coward, but like if he went to war, when the veterans came back anyway, they were hated because
Yeah.
they fought the war
So,
that
I mean,
did not want to be
Spit on us.
fought.
Yeah.
him going to Canada could have just been him getting out of like
The controversy
Yeah.
of it all.
not having to really worry about getting back and just being hated.
I feel like though if he did like end up going to Canada and stuff, he would feel pity for himself though,
Mhm.
because
He'd feel guilty.
yeah, he ditched out on his
Guilt.
country,
Yeah, he's
And all
leaving
that.
his family and all his
Yeah.
like accomplishments behind.
and all that guilt
Yeah.
would just essentially build up.
It's like
'Cause finally he'd start feeling bad for himself.
it's like either what choice he chooses,
Yeah.
he's not gonna turn out on top for it
Yeah.
because he's thrown away a pretty good life behind.
Yeah.
Whatever way he goes.
I don't know what I had to decide. It's like in it, he kind of describes it with a quote. It's like, and I want you to feel it: the wind coming off the river, the waves, the silence, the wooded frontier. You're at the bow of the bow on the rainy river. You're 21-year-old. You're scared, and there's a hard squeezing pressure in your chest. Like just the way he describes it, it almost seems like he didn't know what he wanted to do either. Like it was an impulsive decision if he was going to jump or not.
It describes like how hard of a decision it was on him.
And it almost shows like how impactful it was because he remembers exactly how it was when he had to make the decision. Like it stuck with him.
Yeah, obviously that was probably a pretty big decision then for him.
Yeah.
If he could really remember the feeling of it.
And just like the whole chapter, how he explains it, like how he's embarrassed, like he didn't want to tell this story before. I don't know, it says, that's part of it, no doubt, but what embarrasses me much more and always will is the paralysis that took my heart. Like, and the way that he just couldn't decide what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like, it just that was even a decision kind of like impacted him.
He's like
Yeah.
embarrassed to like
Yeah.
tell people about it because
He doesn't want him to like view them.
like
He doesn't wanna
even
be
he
viewed.
thought about it. He even think twice about
Yeah.
going to fight for our country. Like he thought running was an option.
Yeah. And then if like the embarrassment that would come with that is people would be like, wow, this dude really almost ditched out on the country
Yeah.
to run
Yeah.
away.
Especially.
And it would start a whole
And then
thing.
if he did go, which he did, and then he comes back and like he starts telling people, yeah, I almost didn't go. I mean,
Yeah.
like to like appease the people who hated it because like
Yeah.
they didn't like the war and stuff. But then the people who did go to war would be like expecting him to support, like you went, like you should be supporting us and stuff like that because like it's our cause also, not just
Yeah.
like making the people happy. It should be just like actually standing up for yourself and what you did, anyways.
Yeah.
Do you think he feared this the most about embarrassment than dying?
I have that one question. It was like, so it says like he carried the soldier's greatest fear, which was the fear of blushing. Like, why is that their greatest fear and stuff like that? How you said like
Yeah,
he
because like
feared.
a lot of them feared dying, but like
I honestly
some of them feared being like embarrassed about what they do.
Like their
Yeah.
emotions were what
They're
they feared
yeah.
more.
They're
than
feared of being
death.
like a coward, or
Mhm.
they're feared of like being in that situation where they're supposed to be the hero and freezing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
their fear
they're
of coming back and being hated.
Which like it really kind of like goes in with it too, sort of.
I think fear definitely was like the bigger factor than death, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like if they die, then they're out of the war. They're out of having like the fear
Yeah.
of making the mistake,
But then
or like not being able to like pull the
Like,
trigger. or
like
do
all the
something.
emotional weight they
Yeah.
carried is just gone.
then they have to deal they don't have to deal with that if they died, but just the fear of having to deal with that.
I have a quote from like page 20, and it goes, "They carried all the emotional baggage of men who might die: grief, terror, love, longing. These were intangibles, but the intangibles had their own mass and specific gravity. They had tangible weight. They carried shameful memories." So, like, do you think the intangible items weighed more, like, for what they had to carry than like the items itself, like things that had weight? Do you think these weighed more?
Yeah,
So
because
that's that
it carried on with them longer in life because like some soldiers today have like PTSD from when they come back and
Yeah.
that stays with them forever. But like the tangible stuff they carried, like the 18-pound backpacks, like
You can get
once
rid
they're
of
done with that, they're done with it.
Yeah,
But
that's
like,
just like part of.
but like the memories and the nightmares they
Yeah,
have
the
about it stays with
emotional and
them.
the mental stuff that doesn't go away.
It would almost
but like carrying around, like you said, the 18-pound bag or the water canteens or all that stuff, that goes away.
Eventually,
But-
yeah, like, you run out of it, you throw it.
But the memories flashing back from that, like PTSD, that doesn't go
Or, like
away.
watching like someone that you like trained with and like
Yeah.
have been in a group with get shot right next to you and thinking that could have been me.
Yeah.
Something to relate to this that's not as like intense as like a war, but like a sport that you're in, all the hard work that you like put into it, all the physical work, that's like not something that you're gonna carry with you for the rest of your life. You're gonna carry like the memories that you make and
Yeah.
stuff. So like that's more not like that's just more that you're gonna carry than what you carried in like practices and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, the
I
mental and emotional aspects of
Yeah,
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
much
It's a
it
bigger
sticks with
impact.
you
It really does.
longer.
I have like this one quote. I don't remember what page it was on. But it says he was slim, dead, almost dainty, young man of about 20. He lay with one leg bent beneath him, his jaw in his throat, his face neither expressive nor inexpressive. One eye was shut, the other was a star-shaped hole. And like that's just from his memory. And like he didn't write that down. right then when he saw it, and like
It's
just
just
kind of like as he's
something
journaling it, it's
he
just
remembered.
something he remembered and like it's stuck in his mind and
And
stuff.
it's so like vivid. It just really shows how much.
Yeah.
it's
Like he
there.
remembers, like the whole book has like vivid quotes and like stuff
Yeah.
that like helps you like really imagine
Yeah.
what he was saying.
Yeah.
And it's not like he wrote it all down while he was there. Like
No.
this was this far from this. He
Yeah,
actually
'cause-
like remembered it.
Mhm.
When was this book published? Like,
It'll say it somewhere.
I mean, it was recent. I mean, not like recent, but it was.
First
Ah.
published in 1990.
Oh.
Yeah.
never mind.
that's 20 some years after the war.
Yeah. So I mean, like after all of that time, I mean, maybe he like.
He
'Cause it-
incorporates too like a lot of flashbacks
Yeah.
in the book.
So I mean, your question of
show.
like, does his memories have more weight than the actual things that they carried? They probably do, considering
Yeah.
that he
He
still
still remembers it.
remembers all
He
of
still
that.
remembers every detail of every single story that he tells in this book.
Because
Yeah,
if he
it's
didn't
really-
remember it and stuff, he wouldn't have added so many flashbacks into
Yeah.
it and so many like emotional words and feelings towards
Like,
it all.
And like, wasn't when he like was talking about the pigs or whatever? You know that chapter that was like very. Like,
Yeah, he like described his work with the pigs.
Yeah, wasn't that when he was like kind of younger?
Yeah, like he's
Yeah, so just to remember that, like a lot of people do remember stuff from when they're younger, but like
he
to
remember
remember that much detail.
that was a job he had when he found out he was getting drafted.
Yeah, it's like when something means a lot,
You
the memory's a
remember.
lot stronger.
Yeah, because like my grandpa, one of his best friends got drafted into the Vietnam War, and like when he sometimes used to come to like Thanksgiving dinners and stuff, because like he didn't have a lot of family left,
Yeah,
and he could tell you stories. Like he doesn't like open up about them because they're so like
like
Yeah.
vividly like
My-
like
my grandpa was
traumatizing
the
him. Like
same
way.
but he can like if you did ask him about it, he would tell you some stories, and some he remembers them like without even thinking. He can tell you like the exact place, the scene, what was happening, the time of day. Like they just stick with him.
it just shows how much like the war impacted their memory.
'Cause
Yeah.
That they remember all the tragedies like detail by detail. They didn't have to write it down. It just impacted them that much.
Yeah.
both my grandpas were drafted in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, one, his job, it wasn't a big job because like he cooked
Yeah.
and like he delivered mail to the soldiers. But my other grandpa, he was on the front lines. And my grandpa that cooked, the stories he told weren't as vivid as the
I'd
ones
say your
my
other
grandpa on the front lines told, and he didn't tell those stories a lot.
Yeah, see my like
Keeps the name more.
Yeah.
my grandma's like brother-in-law, he was in the Vietnam War and he like does not talk about it because it's too like traumatizing for
Mhm.
him. He does not talk about it whatsoever and it's just too much for him to talk about. So obviously like for some people there was so much in the war that they don't want to bring the memories up. It's like you bury them in a deep hole inside your mind.
Try to
And you
forget
like
about
carry
them.
them with you, but
Yeah.
like you don't want to
You don't
express
want
them
to
out.
share them with people.
So like the weight just gets heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
I have something about like the way that O'Brien writes. So far out of like the 4 journals that I've had, 3 of them are figurative language. So like he uses a lot of figurative language, but 2 out of those 3 are similes. Like have you guys noticed that he
Yeah.
uses similes
Mhm.
a lot?
He uses, I had a simile too. Like he was comparing war to a ping pong.
I have
ball.
that one.
Yeah, and I have the like that's not it. So like when Strunk and the other guy got in like a fight, it said Strunk's nose made a sharp snapping sound like a firecracker.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just noticed that he uses like similes a lot and like that just really adds to like the vividness of his like stories to help the reader understand like just how like for the nose, just like how
Like what
Bad
the
to
like,
fight
sound
yeah,
with.
because
is
like you
Yeah.
think the sound of a firecracker, and you can compare that to the sound of a nose breaking. You can kind of think what
like
it
see
sounds
how
like.
intense it was.
The
Yeah.
majority of his readers aren't gonna have heard like a nose breaking
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Yeah,
they can't imagine what war
Experience,
was. Like they didn't
So he-
experience it. So like when you like compare it to stuff that's more like daily life, like, a lot of
Realistic.
people have heard firecrackers.
Yeah.
Or like going back to the ping pong one, a lot of people are playing ping pong.
Yeah. So then he's like comparing that to
So then it
how
really
the
just gets
war,
you
like,
thinking.
would bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
He's just comparing it to like things that most of the readers would have seen.
Or like going back to the thing about them carrying weight, I had a quote that also said that like when Lavender died, it said Lavender was now dead and this was something he would have to carry like a stone in his stomach. So like it shows how heavy that weight really was although you wouldn't like think that something like that would be heavy, it is on your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He blamed himself entirely for that, and he definitely took it to heart.
Yeah.
Because there was a part in the book that he said, or like his soldiers watched him just sit in the hole, and then after that, he burned all the stuff from Martha. He took it all way to heart and too deep. I had a question, and I was wondering, did the war cause a lot of tension and emotional stress amongst all the soldiers, as they make it out to sea in the book? Because there was a lot of emotion and tension between all of them.
Yeah,
I
like
can imagine that there definitely would be with like all the hardships that you have to experience.
Especially after reading about David Jensen and Strunk over a jackknife.
but like it brought them closer together.
Yeah.
Like they were like the best. They were like
They
best friends
until Strunk died.
Yeah.
So
like
like
they'd always
it
they kept each
showed-
other company.
Yeah, it shows how like hardships and like fights and stuff can actually bring you closer. Like
Yeah.
especially when you're going through hard times like a war. Like you have to be
Close.
You
close.
have
Like
to.
The only
family.
people you
Yeah.
have are the people that are there with
Yeah.
you.
And you have to protect each other.
Yeah. 'Cause
You're a band of brothers.
they're
Oh.
fighting for this exact
Like-
same thing you're fighting for.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder how many actual fallouts like that are there throughout. Over something small. That was over a jackknife. What if someone took a box of raisins?
Just the fact that like
Yeah.
he
Broke his nose.
Yeah, like broke his nose because the other guy broke his nose. Like
Yeah.
Like,
I think that shows that he showed at least a little remorse and
Yeah.
sorrow
And-
for breaking his nose over
Well,
a
like,
jackknife.
and how
On, like,
scared
the
he
nose.
was.
Yeah.
I have a
about-
question that goes with it. Like when Dave Jensen broke Strunk's nose, Jensen was terrified that Strunk would get revenge. Why did the two end up becoming friends and protecting each other? I went along with it.
I think it's because purely he figured Strunk was gonna be out for revenge.
But like it
Just the fact that he had to watch his back. Like you shouldn't have to watch
Yeah.
your back against your like team. It
It's
should be the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a prank. When you prank someone, then they want to prank you back. It's
you're in the fear that you're gonna get
yeah,
pranked.
that something's gonna happen back to you. So I think he did it out of
But then-
remorse because he feared
You have that fear. You try to get to know them better so
Yeah.
you know what to
he
expect.
feared
And then it
Strunk was gonna come and do something.
Yeah,
so
so-
he just took the liberty himself, broke his own nose.
and then it brought them closer together.
Yeah,
Like putting yourself through the pain somebody else went through brings
especially
you
that
closer.
especially that you inflicted on them.
Yeah.
So then you have a sense of it yourself.
Did you guys think the men had any happiness or hope at points in their time in Vietnam?
They had that I feel like they have some kind of hope because I remember reading about it somewhere in the beginning.
Yeah.
They always they carried stuff that meant he carried a picture of Martha because that's what he hoped to be able to see when he gets back.
Yeah.
Or someone else carried
Carried
a little pebble with them
Mhm.
that
Someone
represented.
carried a rabbit's foot that someone had given them.
Yeah, they brought little stuff that I feel like if they needed it, they could look at it and remind them of the hope and the happiness that if they could keep pushing and keep fighting and not just give up,
That one
they'd be
day,
able to see it
yeah.
again when they got to go home.
one day
Yeah.
they'd go back home and they'd see their family again.
So there was stuff worth fighting for and
Yeah.
stuff that just made it all worth it kind of is knowing that you're going back to your happy life.
It's being in the war, I feel like there's lots of thoughts of just ending
Yeah,
it there.
Or when your life's gonna be normal again.
Yeah,
You could just end it there, and then you don't have to keep trying to go through and fighting through the war. So having those little things that do show hope will help them keep going and not just wanting
Yeah.
to end it.
I feel like that goes along with they bring so many sentimental things rather than materialistic things because they want some sense of hope, that hey, we're gonna go back to our families. We're not gonna die here. We need something.
So throughout the book, he's telling a bunch of different stories. I had this quote that he put in there. It says stories are for eternity. When memory is erased, when there is nothing to remember except the story. And that quote just stuck out to me because it's kind of ironic because all the stories are throughout the book. You know? You know what I mean? I don't know. I thought that was a pretty deep quote, really. That when you don't remember things, if people tell you stories, that brings back the memory that you lost.
Yeah.
Like if you tell someone a story, they're gonna like keep telling the story.
Yeah, and they're gonna like add in with you and like remember.
Like the people will pass, but like the stories of those people will stay forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it helps you like remember that person.
I had the quote, "He was dead weight. There was no twitching or flopping." I can't even pronounce his name. It's like Kiowa, who saw it happen, said it was like watching a rock fall or a big sandbag or something. Just boom, then down. Not like the movies where the dead guy rolls around and does fancy spins and goes ass over tea kettle. Not like that. Kiowa said the poor bastard just flat fuck fell, boom, down, nothing else. And like reading that, it really just showed like why do movies or like actors or TV shows nowadays like why don't they just show the real thing? Why do they kind of like hide it from us? And like, is it because like they don't want us seeing the real thing and making it like have us have experiences like what these people did, and like by like making it cleaner somehow
Yeah.
or something?
Probably like not make it so gruesome.
It's like
They-
Hollywoodizing.
yeah, they add the
Yeah.
little Hollywood effect to it
They don't
to
want
make it look cool instead of just like when a guy gets shot, he just drops and he doesn't move anymore.
Like the trauma that comes from like if they actually showed like the real thing.
Yeah, you're gonna be watching it, you're gonna be like, oh my god.
Or like if war
Yeah.
veterans do watch that, like them just
It's gonna-
dropping.
It's gonna bring back a lot of emotional distress.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I just thought that was like kind of something
I
different.
feel like they just try to cover it up because they don't want like they want people to know like the real side, but they don't want them to like experience it in a way.
kind of
Yeah,
like,
like well, like some movies they do that, but like
Yeah.
they don't do it every time
No, they
it
like
happens. Like
Is it-
they'll add the little Hollywood effect. Like, you guys ever
Yeah.
seen Hacksaw Ridge?
yeah.
Like when they first start opening fire, like some people just drop and then other people are just like rolling around.
It's just kind of like Catcher in the Eye,
it's like they try to mask the like
protecting the
gruesome
innocence.
parts of it. I don't know.
Even when like movies do show things and they like either over dramatize it or whatever, or like they don't enough. Like if you walk into the same like situation, it's not what you're gonna expect it to from the movie. Like
Mhm.
from the movies.
They make it look a little cheesy.
Yeah. Like Hallmark movies.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
gosh.
Is that really gonna
yeah,
happen?
those are
Those are
cheesy.
cheesy.
Yeah.
They're great movies.
They're good
They're
movies,
movies,
but it's
they're just
definitely not
really
something that would
cheesy.
happen. Like the
Yes.
Netflix movie The Night, like I haven't watched it. It's about like but it's like about like a knight and a princess. Like that's not gonna
it's,
happen.
like, it's like they're not gonna make it realistic if
Yeah.
something.
It's like
Or actually
preparing
it
people for like the wrong things.
They're
Like, you
like-
just live your whole life thinking, oh hey, this is how people die and stuff like that. It's like they're gonna do all this fancy stuff, or like you can keep moving for a few seconds, and then you get to it, and you just see someone just fall flat on the ground as if like nothing even happened.
Some
Yeah,
movies are almost probably like propaganda. Like they try to make the war not seem as bad, so people like want to
Mhm.
fight them in the future.
Yeah.
But like once you like see the movie, you have like that positive, like this is how the war is actually gonna be. But then like also sometimes might like take disrespect. I don't want to say like disrespect, but like take value away from the veterans, because like when you see a movie about war, you're like, oh, that doesn't look that bad. They look like they're still having fun. Like
Yeah.
it couldn't have been that bad, but like the
And then if
gruesome
you-
reality of it is like they're not like
It's
the emotional
terrible
stuff that
still.
comes with it. Though
But then,
Yeah.
like, if
Just
you
the
first
thinking.
hand talk to a veteran,
It's
gonna
nothing
tell
like
you,
the
they're gonna
movies.
tell you it's
It was-
nothing like the movies. It's so gruesome,
Mhm.
tragic.
Because like most war movies, they're based on a true story, but they're
Yeah.
historical fiction.
Yeah,
Like
they
everything's
twist
not.
it up to make it
Yeah.
more
yeah.
appropriate for a movie.
Mhm.
Heck, you can argue with Ankrum about that, and he'll tell you firsthand.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions, or are we kind of just like,
Okay.
I have one,
Yeah. all right?
but it's about like chapter 7, or not chapter 7, but like the chapter that he was with like the guy, because that was just like the chapter that stuck out the most to me, I thought. But it's if Elroy Burdall had never really spoken to O'Brien while he was at his cabins, why do you think Elroy is such a hero to O'Brien?
Because people don't have to like talk to you to like impact your life. I feel like sometimes just like the look or just like sitting there and not even like listening, but like just being there is enough to like change it. Like, you don't have to have a
Like,
physical conversation for
their
someone to like change your life. It's like the
They're like-
action.
The actions and their presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Kinda
Yeah,
like-
that definitely helps. Yeah.
When a little kid goes to a college football game or an NFL game, they watch their favorite player.
Yeah.
And like they just meet him once and like they don't even really have a conversation. It's like, oh, they're my hero.
It's just like the way like you see them do things, watch them with other people. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to talk to them and be like, "Oh, you're my hero." You
The
Just-
way they present themselves.
Yeah.
it's the
Makes
way
them-
that they present and
Their
do
impression.
things.
I think a lot of it is like how he did a lot of stuff for O'Brien, but just in silence. Like he paid O'Brien like for helping him when he didn't need to pay him, and he took him out on the boat to be able to go to Canada when he didn't have to do that. And he didn't judge him when he was like crying and embarrassed. Like I don't know. He had like a silent sympathy for him.
It's like I had one of my questions was why is Elroy casually fishing and acting as though he cannot hear O'Brien crying and having a hard decision on the war?
You know, I think that's really just kind of like being a good friend, knowing like giving someone space is a lot better than actually just kind of talking to them. Like let them
Yeah.
figure it out on their own, or just kind of be there, let them know that you're like there to comfort them, but not actually
Yeah,
do anything towards
Like, he-
comforting them.
because essentially everybody wants comfort, but you have to cope with
It
things.
depends on the
He
way.
was there, like for him, like I think he kind of wanted, like Elroy wanted O'Brien to like open up first. Like I feel like if he would have said something, he probably would have like talked to him, but he didn't want to be like, because you know, like when someone's having like a bad day,
It's
and like
not-
They
if you
kinda
go up
just,
and be
like,
like,
shut down.
are you
You try to
okay?
make them feel
They just
bad.
shut
Like,
down.
They shut
it
down
makes
and
them
they're-
wor-
or, like-
makes them feel worse.
Yeah, like they shut down and they just stopped
So
trying
like
to talk.
giving space, like essentially.
But like if they
made him
came up
feel
to
like,
you and was like, "Oh my god, I'm having such a bad day," you could be like, "Why?" And then they probably open up to you about it. So
Yeah.
like, I think he was more trying to like,
Yeah, because you can't just like pry it out of a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And
you
then
gotta
just
like
kind of expect it to
approach in
work.
the right way, or
Yeah.
let them approach you.
and like it was like a time of war. So I feel like people who were getting drafted who didn't want to go, it's probably really common for them to try to run to Canada or like have an option.
Yeah.
So like people like he had an idea of probably what was happening
Mhm.
because like the war had been like such a controversial thing. So like,
He didn't want to judge him for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Especially since they didn't know each other before. Like, you don't want to just judge a new person in front of their face.
Yeah.
they had no connection before that. Yeah.
Well, I think we did good discussing.
Should I end it?
Sure.